Alright, PC gamers, tech nerds, and hardcore enthusiasts, listen up. Nvidia just dropped the RTX 5090, and this thing looks absolutely insane. We're talking more CUDA cores, next-level AI performance, and ridiculously fast memory speeds. But here's the real question, should you actually upgrade from the RTX 4090, or is Nvidia just looking to drain your wallet? If you're on the fence, don't go anywhere because I'm breaking down everything. From performance, power consumption, game compatibility, and of course the price, so you can decide if the 5090 is really worth it. We're talking benchmarks, we're talking thermal throttling, we're talking about whether this thing is actually going to melt your motherboard. Stick around, you don't want to miss this. Let's be real, the RTX 4090 is already an absolute monster. This thing chews through games at 4K, laughs at demanding creative workloads, and handles anything you throw at it without breaking a sweat. It's a beast. And now they drop this 5090 on us, it's gotta be good, right? Now don't get me wrong, the 5090 is faster. In our tests we saw about a 15 to 20% performance increase in most games at 4K. Not bad, right? But here's the thing, if you're just gaming at 1440p or 4K, you're probably not gonna see a huge difference. Yeah, you might get a few more frames per second, maybe even hit that glorious 144 Hz on your super ultra wide. But are you really gonna notice an extra 10 to 15 FPS when you're already pushing 120 plus? Honestly, probably not. Your eyes are gonna have a hard time telling the difference. Now if you're running AI workloads, 3D rendering, or trying to game at 8K, that's where the 5090 really starts to shine. We're talking rendering time slashed in half, AI models training in a fraction of the time. It's a beast for professional workloads, no doubt. But for most gamers, it's not the massive generational leap we were hoping for. Remember when the 1080 came out, or the 2080? Those were big jumps. This feels more like an iteration, a refinement. Don't get me wrong, it's a hell of a card. But is it a must-have upgrade from the 4090? Let's dive a bit deeper and find out. Now let's talk about something most people overlook, something super important if you don't want your system going up in smoke: power consumption. This bad boy is a straight-up power-hungry beast. We're talking about a fire hazard if you don't treat it right. The RTX 5090 pulls a whopping 575 watts. That's right, 575 watts. The 4090 wasn't exactly a slouch at 450 watts, but this is a whole other level. What does that mean for you? You're gonna need a beefier power supply, better cooling, and, oh yeah, expect your electricity bill to take a hit. If your rig is already rocking a 1000 watt or higher PSU, you might be fine. You might be able to squeeze by. But if not, that's another $200 to $300 for a solid power supply just to keep this thing running. And let's be real, no one wants to cheap out on a power supply. That's just asking for trouble. And let's not even talk about how hot this thing gets. We're talking about turning your case into a space heater if you're not careful. If your case doesn't have good airflow, if you're still rocking that stock cooler, you're gonna feel it. We're talking thermal throttling, performance drops, maybe even the dreaded blue screen of death. Not ideal, right? So yeah, power consumption and heat, definitely something to consider before you smash that buy button. Alright, here's a curveball that nobody's really talking about. Nvidia just dropped support for PhysX on the RTX 50 series. I know, right? What are they thinking? Now if you mostly play the latest AAA games, you're good. Modern games don't use PhysX anymore. They've moved on to bigger and better things. But if you love revisiting older titles that rely on it, like Borderlands 2, Batman Arkham series, or even some Unreal Engine classics, you might actually see worse performance on the 5090 than the 4090. It's true, we tested it. Turns out, without PhysX support, those games have to rely on your CPU for those physics calculations. And depending on your CPU, that could mean a significant performance hit. For most gamers, this won't matter much. They've moved on to the next big thing. But if you're like me, if you love revisiting those older titles, if you've got a library of classics just waiting to be played, this is something to think about before upgrading. Is it a deal breaker? Probably not. But it's definitely a weird quirk, and something to keep in mind, especially if you're a fan of those older games. Alright, let's talk about the biggest factor, the elephant in the room, price. The RTX 5090 is launching at a mind-blowing price of $1,999. That's $2,000, just for a graphics card. I know, it's insane, right? For that kind of money you could buy a used car. You could go on vacation. You could buy a whole lot of ramen noodles. But hey, this is the price of progress, right? Now, if you're running an RTX 3090 or older, this might be a huge upgrade. I mean, you're talking about a significant jump in performance. But if you already have a 4090, spending another $2,000 for a 15 to 20% performance boost, that's a hard sell. Seriously, think about it. For that kind of cash, you could grab a high refresh rate 4K monitor to actually enjoy the FPS boost, a better CPU to eliminate bottlenecks, a full gaming PC upgrade. Seriously, $2,000 can get you a whole new rig. Unless you absolutely need the latest and greatest, unless you're rocking a workstation that needs that extra horsepower, your money is probably better spent elsewhere. Alright, now I want to hear from you. Is the RTX 5090 worth the hype, or is nvidia just trying to cash in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this breakdown helped you out, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Make sure to subscribe for more no BS tech reviews, deep dives, and gaming hardware breakdowns. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay gaming, stay building, and I'll see you guys soon.